And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of The Feel Good Show. And I do believe that we got something special here for you, if I'm not mistaken. T-Boz, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me, oh great one?
Oh, we can hear you all right.
All right, I speak nice and loud. I got a frog in my throat.
Oh, no, that could be hazardous to your health.
Yes, especially if there's flies around.
Well, hopefully, hopefully stays.
Let you know, some of us were having trouble getting WAPJ on our home devices. You guys are now coming through loud and clear.
Well,
ALXAs and all those kind of ALEXAs and all those kind of things. So, if those of you who are listening, you can go back to your devices if you can't get WAPJ through the radio. So,
T-Boz.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, sorry, Jock, what did you say?
I'm a little concerned about you this morning.
No, I don't know what it is. I just, I drank a cup of coffee, and then I tried to make a quick phone call. I guess, at my age, Jock, if you do too much, I'm good as I once was, but not as good as I ever was, however that song goes. But good morning, everyone.
I'm just hoping that the frog in your throat doesn't go knee deep.
Yeah, well, I never had frog legs, but maybe I'm about to.
Thanks for letting me get that in, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's your show, so you're the boss. Good morning, everyone. Welcome in Friday Eve, as Jock Williams has renamed Thursday. Thank you for fitting the show in. I know a lot of you are so busy with your businesses, your careers, children, helping the grandchildren, helping your wife or spouse around the house, doing all sorts of things. So 50 balmy degrees today. We might see tulips coming up through the ground. So thank you so much for coming into the classroom or listening online, or maybe you're watching via Zoom or you're using the big old radio in your living room. Either way, we're coming to you crystal clear. Come on in. Oh, George, could you go more coffee cups? Stan says he needs some more coffee cups. I guess ever since, Jock, we took that big marquee out on 84, we've gotten a lot more people in the classroom. So come on in. You can sit anywhere. There's no assigned seats. Come on in, and welcome to the classroom here at Words of Wisdom and Moments of Meditation. So we're going to get rolling here. We're going to start with two quick shout-outs, and these are noteworthy. We haven't done shout-outs in a while, but these we're doing, okay? First shout-out is to Selma Boscarino, the mother of my good friend Jim, and on the 17th of January, Selma celebrated her 96th birthday. Amen to that. And, Jock, do you think you could do a quick little happy birthday to Selma? I mean, she's 96 years old. Could we do that real quick?
What key do you want me to do it in?
E-flat minor, if you could.
E-flat minor? Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alma. Happy birthday to you.
All right. And I'm sure she has a smile. Jim says she's as sharp as a tack. I've met her. She's sharper than a tack. And so happy birthday, Selma. Her and her late husband, Cuddy. Their legacy is their 4 sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And what an amazing family they have all through the northwest corner here and down in Georgia. So happy birthday, Selma. And the next quick shout-out is my friend Gloria and her husband, Bob. Yesterday, they celebrated 65 years of marriage. Can you believe that? Bob was stationed in Greenland. They got married at St. Peter's Church, and they told the priest, we don't know our wedding day because we don't know when Bob's going to come home on leave. And so it was the 24th of January. And so last night they went out to dinner. What an amazing accomplishment. They have 2 children, a daughter and a son, and just a great couple. Bob was a postman, and Gloria worked town hall in the tax department, I believe. She'll correct me if I'm wrong on that, but she's in my Bible class. So very noteworthy announcements. Congratulations to everyone. Stan, say it with me. The coffee man, what's in that big silver pot today? Cozy winter mocha. What'd you do? Just open the pot? It smells fabulous. We've got bagels, and we have muffins, all kinds, blueberries, raspberries, even bran muffins for the health conscious. Gee, the hot chocolate. And who sponsored this, Stan? Carl's True Value Hardware, right over there, going up Route 4. Look, folks, if you go to Carl's, if you can't find it, either they don't make the item you're looking for or you don't need it. And Bruce over there is very helpful. Patrick is another great helper. They got a new guy named OJ. He speaks Spanish. For those of you who need a little help with certain things that way, go over to Carl's True Value. That place has more stuff than Lowe's and Home Depot put together. So please support the people, support the show. I can't believe our final show for January. But George, he's got a box with red things in it for February. Going to be decorating the studio for next month. You know what that means. So our show today, I don't want to say the show is a feel-good show, but what we try to do with this segment is to bring topics and themes to all of you that help us as we develop through our humanity and as we grow as individuals. Today's topic inspired to me by a woman that I'm working with in Shelton. She had lost her husband 7 months ago. There's been some other people in the classroom who have gone through loss of either a spouse or a sister or a brother. And so I thought that the Spirit was speaking to me to bring this topic. And so the topic today is coping with grief and loss. And we go over to our format. And what we're going to do today is we're going to explore grief and loss. So it could even be the loss of relationship, not necessarily death, but they kind of go together. What is grief, okay, and how to work through it. We're also going to explore how it changes us and it rebuilds us in our lives. That's a very interesting concept. Some of you are saying, gee, I feel lousy. I just lost someone I love. How am I going to rebuild my life? How is it going to change me? And so we're going to go through all of that. And so we'll start with our scripture verses, which we always do. And we have an exciting show next week, but we'll talk about that if we have time at the end of the show. Psalm 34, verse 18, the Lord is nearer to the brokenhearted and crushed in spirit. And so when you lose someone, your spirit may be crushed. You may be brokenhearted, but the Lord is nearer to that. But we spoke about a great quote a couple of months ago about the spirit is bent but never broken. But here, Scripture tells us that we feel crushed. And so we're going to go on to Matthew and then another psalm, and I'm going to tie them all together. Matthew chapter 5, verse 4 says, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So we have a God that though we're in a hell, a bad season, he's not going to forget us. Psalm 56, verse 8 says, you have kept count of my tossings and put my tears in your bottle. I like that word tossing. How many times when we are struggling, we're tossing at night in bed, we just can't get comfortable. We can't stop thinking about the grief that we have. And so in that psalm, it says that God has remembered all my tossings. He kept count of that and kept my tears in his bottle. That's how precious we are. So what Psalms in Matthew and Psalms again is saying that even though we feel crushed, we're not. Even though we feel broken, that God, that spirit of love, that strength is nearer to us. We're not abandoned, and that's what happens during grief. I know when I went through this 9 years ago, I felt lost. I felt abandoned. I thought, I sat in a chair and I shook my fist up at the sky. I said this once before, and I said to God, what were you thinking? I'm blind and I lost my wife and my means of being ambulatory. What were you thinking? Okay, so we have that feeling of doubt, but our scripture tells us even in our season of doubt, even in our doubtfulness, there is a God who comforts us and will provide for us. We just celebrated a party here at my house called the Driver Appreciation Party. We had 17 people, spouses and girlfriends and boyfriends, but 10 of those people are people that drive me back and forth to Plainville, help me deliver the rabbits, actually do things around the farm here. And so even though I felt crushed in spirit, even though I felt abandoned, my God didn't leave me astray. He didn't leave me out there. He was in the center of my life, and person by person by person, he brought these people into my life. Of all the people in this house Sunday, and what a great group of people. We had an amazing party catered by Vinny's, but there was only one person I knew when my wife was alive. Every other person I never knew, and even walked by him in Torrington. But as God would do it, he put those people into my life. So God is near. You will be comforted. You have to have faith. What is grief? Grief is natural. It is a natural part of living. We're going to go through these quickly. Grief serves a purpose. What? Yes, grief serves a purpose. We're going to talk about that purpose. And then grief refreshes us. Refreshes us. But though grief has its purpose, it also has its limits. And so what do we mean by it's natural? As our body, as we love, and someone called in this morning knowing the topic and said grief is the price of love. Okay, so because we love, that's a natural feeling. Then when that person, whether it's a child that we lost or a spouse or could be a neighbor, parent, grandparent, the natural course of life is to feel sad. Don't let anybody tell you that, oh, you're being silly or, oh, you've been grieving too long. We're going to talk about that too today. Grief is natural. It's okay to feel grief. And we're going to talk about different kinds of grief. And it has a purpose. It refreshes us because as we're going through the process, as we're thinking about the person, as we're having memories, as we're experiencing that void that is now in our life, we are being carved, and we're going to talk about being sculptured into a new person. That's an interesting concept. I am not the same person today that I was before my wife passed away. Not even close. The only thing that's the same is my name. Everything else about me has changed as grief refreshed me. Now, another thing you have to learn, boys and girls, and I've learned this from visiting nurses, our body has a hormone in it. And so when you go to a funeral or a wake and you see someone in, you go, wow, Margaret looks great. She just lost her husband. Your body has a hormone that goes throughout your whole body when you have loss like that. And that hormone stays in your body for only 6 months. So it's like a shield. So as you're going through that, and a lot of you in the classroom who went through that with me or you're going through it again, you feel like you say, afterwards, how the hell did I get through all of that? Making those funeral arrangements or learning how to put the filter in the furnace or learning how to cook and all of that. How do I get through that? Well, your body emits a hormone that's like a shield that protects you because we are human beings, right? But after 6 months, that hormone recedes back into your body and you are left defenseless. So if you have someone that's grieving or someone you know that has lost, you want to stay around them now in the early parts of it. But don't forget about them in 6 months because in 6 months, that person will be defenseless. Boom. And that's when it hits you all of a sudden. So it's very important for yourself to realize that. And also, if you know of someone, stay around them, stay in front of them, stay near them, and don't think that 6 months, it's all over. That's when they're at their lowest point. Orson Scott says this, life is full of grief by the degree at which we allow ourselves to love. Boom. And that's what my friend called in. The price of grief is the price of love. It's how much we allow ourselves to love. And so if some of you are going through a lot of grief, maybe it's over a spouse, a child, it could be a parent, it doesn't matter. You love, you put so much up, but don't be afraid to love. And listen to the song at the end of the show. Don't hold back that love on the reins because you don't want to feel that pain. That grief That sadness that you have is really the outpouring of the love that you had for that person, the good that you got with that relationship. As it says in Psalms, God is near. Those who mourn will be comforted. So realize that you're not alone. There's negative traits of grief. One, there's the loneliness. There's the isolation, shunned by family and friends. A lot of people say, gee, I had a bunch of people that I knew, and all of a sudden, no one was around. I hate to say it, but that happened to me. A lot of people in my life today were not in my life. I'll tell you a quick story. There was a guy that worked for us. His name was Ray. He only spoke 2 words in English. Hi, Tommy. Bye, Tommy. When my wife died, he came here. It was a Thursday night. I'll never forget it. I was sitting on the back porch. He came with 2 cups of coffee, and he sat down next to me. We didn't say one word to each other. He was here for 2 hours. He just sat there looking out at the yard. I sat there looking out at the yard. But I knew that he knew that I was hurting, and he was there for me. Even in the absence of words, he said a lot by his action. So if you know someone that's grieving, don't offer your advice. Just go and sit with them. Just be there with them. You don't have to tell them anything. But by the virtue of your presence and your love for them, they will know that you care. So it's very, very important. So you will have that shunning, that isolation, okay? The thing that you need to do is get counseling. We're going to talk about that after the break. And get a good pair of listening ears like Ray, in a way. People who will sit and listen to you. And if you have someone that's grieving, be a good pair of ears to them. Just listen. Don't offer your advice. I'll give you a hint. They don't want it. They just want someone to listen to all the stories about Frank, to all the stories about their daughter, to all their funny stories about Mama and Nana. That's all they want you to do is listen. Now, we are at 11:30. Jock, can we listen to the sponsors?
Absolutely. Want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to bring you the quality community radio programming that we're doing so at this time. And we want to remind each and every one of you, if you have something that you want to share with the community, please don't hesitate to do so. Contact me here at WAPJ, and we'll be more than happy to hook you up, especially on Thursdays for our local and live segment. We're so glad to have T-Boz as a weekly contributor to the show, and we wish you continued success, T-Boz, in delivering the good word to the fine folks of Torrington. And with that being said, we'll return the floor back to T-Boz for more words of wisdom and moments of meditation.
I thank you for that, Jock. And part of the new Tommy is this show. And we'll see if we can squeeze that in. There's a lot we have to talk about today. Get counseling. I don't care if you say you don't need it. I'm going to tell you the good news. You need it. I'm going to tell you the bad news. You need it. When we were in bereavement, and I've told this story 1,000 times. I probably don't need to tell it, but I'm going to tell it. It's my show. We were in bereavement. We had a woman in that class that was widowed 13 years. She was Italian descent, like me. I know what Italian is. Testa dura. That means hard-headed, right? And when her husband died, she went back to work. She got rid of all the clothes. No one was going to tell her, I'm strong. I can handle this. I can. Guess what? She couldn't. And 13 years later, she had a nervous breakdown because she never faced the grief. She never shed the tears. She never stood in the corner. She never felt the isolation. And so she had a nervous breakdown. So what did she do? She came into our group. She said it was the best thing she ever did. Some of you are nodding, you remember that woman, you were in the group. So whatever you're going through, whether it's private counseling or group counseling, sometimes if you lost a child, maybe a child group is better for you. We were mainly in a spousal group, the one that I was in, with some people who had lost parents. So we had a lot in common. Find the right group for you and get the counseling that you need. I even went through private counseling. I talked to more priests and rabbis And I think the reason why I was able to heal and become the person I am is because I spoke to people, I shared my heart, I shed my tears. I didn't hold it all in. And when you do that, boys and girls, it manifests itself in many other ways. Here's some facts about grief. Grief is ethnic, and there's no time limits. I'm going to tell you a story about that. And there is no better grief, bad grief. Okay, so what I mean about ethnic, I'm Italian descent. I'm an American, but I'm Italian descent. Okay, I had built a shrine in my house when my wife passed away. When you came in the main foyer, you would have thought you were in a church. It was a shrine. Every artifact from her, okay? So the Italian descent people, but there are people who only put out one picture. But it doesn't mean that my grief was, I was more in love with my wife than the person who puts out the one picture. Some people don't put out any pictures, but it's still okay. So your ethnicity, the way you grieve. So don't compare yourself to someone else if you're in a class. Don't compare yourself to the neighbor down the street. What do we say in the show? Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. So however you're grieving, your ethnicity plays into that. And there's no time limit. I have a woman. There's a woman that came into our group, and she had just lost her husband. It was in December. And she told a story. Now, follow this. This woman who lost her husband had a sister-in-law that lost her husband about 5 years before this woman lost her own husband. And after 3 months, the woman that we knew went up to her sister-in-law and said, it's been 3 months. You got to get over this already. Imagine that. Well, when this woman lost her husband, she went right back to her sister-in-law, begged for mercy, begged for forgiveness, and said, oh, my God, I had no clue what I was talking about. Imagine that. She had to have her loss to realize how wrong she was to say that to her sister-in-law. So there is no time limit. But getting back to our original thing, it has limits. Eventually you will heal. Grief serves that purpose. But there is no time limit. Some people start to feel better after a year. Some people start to feel better after 3 months. But it doesn't mean someone is doing better or worse. There's no scorecard in this, okay? So be careful what you say to people. Sometimes when we finally have our own loss, we realize, and that's what happened to this woman, and she begged for mercy, and her sister-in-law forgave her. She said, you had no idea what I was going through. So be careful what you say. John Green, who's an American author, says, grief does not change you, it reveals you. Boom. So it reveals you. It reveals the kind of relationship that you had with that person that you lost. It reveals your faith. It reveals how you're going to take this loss and rebuild your life and fix yourself to some degree. So it's like a mirror. We talked about that on the show one time. I'm holding a mirror up to yourself. So grief doesn't change you, but reveals. And sometimes that's what we don't like, do we? We don't like to see ourselves. So we point the finger at other people, right? We blame other people because it takes the focus off of us. Grief will reveal about you. Were you kind to that person during their life? Some of the biggest criers in church at a funeral are the people that didn't spend time with the people that have passed away. What grief teaches us, Leo Basiglia says, death is a challenge. Okay? It tells us not to waste time. So if you have loved ones you're with, don't wait to the bitter end. Don't be the big crier in church. Don't have any regrets. Don't have any regrets. A friend of mine just lost a sister. They had a wonderful relationship through their entire life, not just toward the end. The stories that my friend told me, two sisters, they were about 7 years apart, but wonderful, wonderful childhood memories and adult memories through their whole life. So be close to the people you're with, and don't, as Basiglia says, don't waste time. Fyodor Dostoevsky, I'm sure he's Polish, says this: the darker the night, the brighter the stars. The deeper the grief, the closer to God. What a beautiful poem. So the deeper the grief, the brighter the stars, okay? And the closer you are to God. So the person that you're lost, if you're in deep grief and you're having a hard time with it, focus on the light that they had shown into the world. Focus on the light that they have shown to you, okay? So the deeper the grief, okay, the closer to God. The darker the night, the brighter the stars. There's a great saying, only stars shine in the darkness. We look at J.K. Rowling, who wrote, the name escapes me right now. You guys know who it is. The book, it'll come to me. But her real name is Joanne. And she says, things come back to us in the end, not always in the way we expect it. Okay? So things come back to us in the end, not the way we expect it. A lot of us want this loss to end. We want the landscape to be the way it was. But part of your grief healing is to embrace what has happened, accept what has happened, realize what has happened, and then deal with it. Don't do what this woman did for 13 years and shun everything away. Okay, so J.K. Rowling says things come back to us not in the end, but not in the way we expect it. So you will feel good again. You will be reminded about your loved one. You will feel them from heaven. You will feel their presence in different ways, not in the way it was before, but in the way that it comes back to us. And be alert. And as you go through your grief process, ask for feelings of visitation through your loved ones, through spirit, not so much they're standing in the room. Ask through song or through movies or someone says something. And so if you're open and you're revealing yourself, as it says, you'll find that, and not the way you expect it. I didn't expect a lot of things that happened to me, but be surprised the way it comes back. Winnie the Pooh, okay? How lucky am I that I have something that was so wonderful that it makes it hard to say goodbye. Do we feel lucky? In the middle of our grief, the last thing we probably feel is lucky. But what we're learning here in Winnie the Pooh is changing the attitude. How lucky we are that we feel this way, that it was hard to say goodbye. That's a blessing, okay? That's a blessing. And so turning the bad around in that process of grief and realizing how blessed you were to have had that person in your life, and they so enriched your life the way they did. We look at my discovery. What I learned most about life, or true living, as I say, I learned in death. When I lost my wife, that opened my eyes to how to live. I mean, spousal loss, all loss is awful. Spousal loss for me, I haven't had it. My parents have passed away, but for me, that was natural progression. It was awful, but it's natural progression. But losing my wife was awful. Okay, but what I learned about life and true living, I learned in death. And it was in that grief that I began to realize how precious life really is, how precious time is with people, how precious it is to get up in the morning and see the sun coming in the window. So it's in that hell, in that grief, as it says, we are revealed. Are we going to be someone that just pack it in and throw ourselves under the dirt, or under a towel somewhere, under a blanket? Or are we going to say, I'm going to start to do something new? My wife said to me, I'm fighting for life. She was going through her chemotherapy. I'm fighting for life. You have to live. You have life in front of you. So in that grief process, realize that you have life in front of you. If some of you are a parent, realize your children already lost one parent. They can't lose two. And my friend who lost her sister, her nieces lost a parent, but they can't lose their aunt as well. So we need to be well. We need to be positive, because we still need to be there for the people that are still here. Life is a gift. It's not an entitlement. Life is a gift. Every day that we get is a gift. How do we use it? How do we show God that we appreciate the people and the life that we have? Elizabeth Kubler says this: you will heal. Now follow this, boys and girls. You will heal and you will rebuild yourself. Not your life, yourself. Starts with you. You will rebuild yourself around the loss that you have suffered. So out of that pain will come a rebuilding. Okay? You will be whole again. Imagine that. You will be whole again. But, here's the but, you will never be the same, or should you be, nor would you want to be. Boom. You're going to come out of this loss, if some of you are in it, or some of you have gone through it. Someone said to me last night, they're afraid of grief because right now that person has his whole family intact. But God gives you the strength for today. You don't have the strength for tomorrow. You don't have the strength for 5 years. You don't even have the strength for 5 o'clock. You have the strength for right now, okay? But you will be whole again, and you will heal, and you will rebuild your life, yourself, around the loss that you suffered. But you will never be the same, nor would you want to be, because that experience, as it says, reveals you. I'm not the same person I was. And there's people in this room who are nodding their heads saying the same thing. Out of that loss, I rebuilt myself again, okay? But nor would you want to be the same. You can have an experience like the loss of a child, the loss of a parent, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a sister, brother, and think that, well, I'm just going to go back to my old habits. Their life should have affected you. Their life should have opened your eyes to things that maybe you haven't seen. And so what I learned about life, I learned in death. That's a strange thing, but it's the truth. And it's what we have to do in our grieving period, is take the positiveness of those people's lives and turn it into something beautiful. Philippians says, chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. It doesn't say I can do some things. It doesn't say I can do a couple of things. I can do all things. And all things means that if you're going through this period of your life, or if you know someone's going through this life, you can come out on the other side. Okay? You can rebuild your life, as it says over there. Just like J.K. Rowling says, things come back in a different way. I can do all things. Keep that word all in front of you. Think in abundance. Jesus said, I came to give life and give it abundantly. Think in abundance as you're going through the grief process. Here's another statement. Now listen to this. People do not like fake flowers because they don't die. They don't die because they never were alive. Fake flowers don't have the aroma that real flowers have. They don't have the brilliance of color. Okay? They never die, but they were never alive. So the life that we lose, whether a spouse or some family member or friend, we lose that. But remember, they were alive, and they gave life to other people. We talk about that on the show, how we talked about It's a Wonderful Life, how one man's life affected so many. Fake flowers don't do that. That's why people prefer real flowers over fake flowers. Ruth Ann Shebaker says this: each day comes bearing gifts. Untie the bow. Untie the bow. Some of you are going through the grief process and you feel, I'm not deserving of something good. Oh, I'm not deserving of my daughter maybe calling me from California. I'm so down. I'm so sad. No. Life to the abundance. Every day comes bearing gifts. Untie the bow. You're worthy of happiness again. You're worthy of a smile on your face. Don't push the box aside. Untie the bow. You can and you must. That's a statement about grief. You can and you must. You can't give up. You can and you must. And grief like resculptures us. And I know that sounds strange, but when an artist takes a rock and they little by little take parts of the stone out to reveal the statue inside, that's what's happening to us in the grief process. We're being re-sculpted into a new creation based on the wonderful life that we shared with the person that we have. Our joys will be greater, our loves will be deeper, our lives will be fuller because we shared your moment. Boom. So good always comes out of evil. And I say this about Veronica and I. As we move forward in our life, people say, oh, move forward. We don't look at Tim and Lori. Her husband's name was Tim. We don't look at Tim and Lori like on a train station and we just left on the train and waving to them. They're with us, okay? They're with, in a different way, as J.K. Rowling says, but they're with us on the journey because those people, my late wife and her late husband, formed us into the people who were in love with each other today. We just didn't pop out of a box somewhere. So their essence is still with us as we go through the new journey, as we are whole again, as we rebuild our lives. Okay? We're not waving to them in the back from the back of the train. And so if you lost a parent, or you lost a loved one, or you lost a sister, they're with you in a different way. They're with you in a legacy. My friend who lost her sister, this woman lost her husband years ago when she had little children. She was a very young girl at the time. And she could have came home to Torrington, but she told her mother, no, I'm going to stay in West Hartford and rebuild and be whole again. She raised 3 amazing daughters who are now in, I think, late 50s and mid-60s. And so her legacy lives on through her daughters. So she stayed after losing a husband at a young age, and she raised those daughters. She didn't cave. She had life to her abundance. Okay? She did all things in Christ that could strengthen her, and then even in her retirement, all the things that she did for the community. So through death, she learned life, and she raised 3 amazing daughters that are still, their children and grandchildren are carrying on their Nana's legacy. That's how you get through the grief process. Okay, getting to the takeaway. John Steinbeck says this: it's so much darker when a light goes out than it would have been had the light never shone. Boom. The people you lost are a light. But it would have been darker had that light never shone, or that relationship that you were in that maybe ended. Better to have the light shine and go out than never to have the light at all. So what grief teaches us sometimes is to really appreciate the person we lost, and guess what? Maybe show a better appreciation to the people that are still here. Boom. It reveals, what did John Green say? It reveals us. So what we're missing in that loss, in that grief process, in those tears, in that anguish, we need to take that and then look at the people that are still around us and say, I want to love you more. I want to spend more time with you. I want to be with you. You know, I hear some guys say, I don't buy my wife flowers anymore. I say, that's a bunch of malarkey, because when she dies, you'll be at the cemetery every day with flowers, and it won't matter. So grief opens our eyes to life. It opens our eyes to ourselves as what we appreciate and what we value in people. And so because of your moment, we shared that moment with you. The takeaway, here's the takeaway. It's brief, and I love it. And it's by an unknown person, so we don't know who to give credit to. I am because you were. I am because you were. Everyone in your life shapes you. I am the person I am through my late wife. Veronica's the person she is through her late husband. We are because of them, and now the new creation that she and I are is out of the love that we had for those 2 people. My friend who lost a sister is probably nodding her head saying, I am because you were. My friend in Shelton, who lost her husband 7 months ago, is probably nodding, saying, I am, because you were. And every person in this room is affected by grief. And every person in this room has loss. And I see a lot of you nodding, saying, I am, because you were. You were. Like my wife said, I'm fighting for life. You have life in front of you. So in that grief period, realize that every day is a gift. Untie the bow. God is nearer to those that are hurt and crushed in spirit. He will comfort you, has his tears and your tears in his bottle. And at the end of the day, we are because they were. Jock, you want to wrap it up? And I remembered the J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter, but I was so engrossed in the topic, it slipped my mind.
Well, you brought me back to a time in my life when I was younger, and we had a friend who was a close friend of the family, and they tragically were killed in a car accident. And this particular person was loved by everyone. She was with her best friend. They were both, I think, seniors in high school at the time it had happened. And her brother, who I was very, very close to at the time, we were discussing it. And, even though we were young, I was trying to be, conciliatory about the situation. And, I just came out with, this was, God's will. Mm. And he looked at me, he didn't say anything, but I could tell in his eyes when I said that it was not the right thing to say. And that haunted me for years. And I think the takeaway from what you said today was that we don't know what God's will is all the time. And when we're grieving or when we're trying to console other loved ones who are grieving, sometimes the best thing to do is just listen to what they're saying. And don't give any comment, because words in those times do not aptly capture the situation. And it's better just to be there. And if it's a situation where you just have to, hold them close to you and just let them know that you're with them, sometimes that's enough. And you have to be able to learn how to let people go through those 5 steps of grieving. And it's never easy. It's not supposed to be easy, but it is supposed to be a situation that opens our eyes to what those possibilities are, if we can allow them to manifest themselves. It matures us if we let it. It evolves us if we let it. And as a support system, that's probably the best road for us to take, is to support and to be a guide. And then when it's affecting us, we just have to try our best to understand that things do happen, and learning to accept is half the battle. And when we learn to accept, we can deal with the reality of the situation, no matter how difficult it is. And then we can let the grace of God heal us.
You're exactly right. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's Friday Eve. I hope we can get some of the song in. We went a little over, but it was a very touching topic. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Stan, George by the door, thank you. Let's see if we can get some of that song in, Jock. Thank you. Bye-bye.